The oil and gas industry in Louisiana is a major part of the state's economy. We've got 34,000 people that work directly in the extraction industry and the service companies that support it, with over $3 billion in wages, and a proud part of Louisiana's economy and history, for over a century. Going back to the beginning of January, we've seen a steady decline in the price of oil that really started taking major drops in the beginning of March, when OPEC and Russia decided to wage war on energy producers. And now we're dealing with COVID-19 and the global shutdown of the economy that has just really caused 30% reduction in global demand for oil, and the industry is facing a perfect storm because of it. The industry right now, the most important thing is being able to get the economies moving again. We've got to get the demand for oil back up globally, and that's only going to happen by getting our economies moving again and doing it safely. And then we need life support measures to be able to weather the storm. We need offshore royalty relief here in Louisiana. We need severance tax relief, and then we need to have an end to these government-sponsored coastal lawsuits that are taking important revenues out of companies' pockets and spending on defense lawyers instead of being able to spend that making payroll and keeping people working.
What has that meant for Louisiana companies that work in the oil and gas industry?
You know, the industry, we're having to make tough decisions now. We're looking at our expenses and looking at our employees, and knowing that we have to weather the storm. So we're having to start making layoffs. We did a survey of our members, and they expected to see roughly 70% of the workforce being reduced over the next 90 days. And those are families, and these are tough times for everyone. But for the industry, once the stay-at-home orders are lifted, people go back to work, our challenges are still going to be here.
Louisiana went through a very difficult time in the 80s. How does with the drop in oil prices? How does today's situation compare with that?
So in talking to our members, many of them that survived through the 80s are looking at this and saying that this is much worse than what we saw in the 80s. There's literally not a place to sell a barrel of oil right now, which is why we saw oil go negative for the first time in history on Monday. And so when you can't even produce a barrel of oil and you don't have a place to sell it, you've got to shut in your wells, something that the industry has never experienced before.
What are the solutions at the Louisiana legislature level and at the congressional level, and of course in the general economy?
Yeah, what we're looking for from the legislature and the administration is really two things. We're looking for a suspension of severance taxes and done so in a way that doesn't harm local governments who depend on those dollars. And then the other is to pass Senate Bill 359 and bring in responsible steps forward in addressing the government-sponsored coastal lawsuits that are really just crushing the industry in South Louisiana.
Would you describe this as a rescue package?
It's life support. I mean, it is absolute life support. I mean, industry, when any industry that's seen the value of their product diminished by 80%, is going to need help. And industry, because of the perfect storm and this global demand for oil being down, we're in a tough place, and we're going to need life support measures if we're going to keep the wells flowing, keep people working, and are going to be ready to be a part of Louisiana's recovery, which we so want to be.
What role does Louisiana's oil and gas industry play in revenue for the state government?
Yeah, look, the industry is a huge part of state revenues, and if you look at, I think the budget that they were looking at before we had to recess was, $500, $600, $700 million in direct revenues from severance taxes and royalties. We take that off the table because of these low prices and because we have to shut in wells. Those are dollars that can't be made up anywhere else. Then you multiply the lost wages and the lost industry, the impact is going to be felt far and beyond that. So we could be talking about $600, $700, $800 million impact to the state budget if we can't keep the industry working, if we can't keep the wells flowing.
What does Louisiana's oil and gas industry mean to the entire nation?
No, it's because of the oil and gas industry that we have the lives that we do. We're able to get cheap fuel to power our vehicles, to power our homes, the products that were made. I mean, the industry, and now we're providing a level of security for our nation because we're able to produce enough energy, enough oil and natural gas to power our country. And so we are a vital part of our national economy, our national security.
What is your final message to legislators in Baton Rouge, members of Congress, and to the general public?
Look, the industry is here. We want to be a part of the recovery. We're resilient, but in order to do that, we need to get the economy moving again, and we need to do it in a safe way. And then while the economy is rebuilding, we're going to need life support help. We're going to need a reduction in our severance taxes, and we need to bring an end to these coastal lawsuits. And if the federal government can do anything on broad-scale offshore royalty relief in the Gulf of Mexico, we would greatly appreciate it.
How can people get more information?
Sure, we can go to our website or www.loga.la, and then we're available on all the social media platforms to make it very easy for people to connect and stay informed.